It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley as we move into a Friday. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning. Man, we got a lot to talk about. First, latest update on Hurricane Helene. I'm looking here at the power outage tracker on Fox News. Florida right now, 1.2 million people without power. Georgia, 126,000. South Carolina, over 16,000. Tennessee, 4,000 right now.
Yeah.
And, you look at it, and we won't know really what the damage is till the morning. And by the way, it hit, in case people are just waking up or something, it hit the Big Bend area of Florida at 140 miles an hour. So it was a Cat 4 when it hit.
In fact, an update here just a few minutes ago from the National Hurricane Center. Maximum sustained winds right now at 110 miles an hour. Still a lot of power as Helene, the eye wall, now getting close, according to the National Hurricane Center, to to moving into southern Georgia officially. Now, Georgia's been dealing with the effects of Helene with heavy rain and heavy winds. Because it's not just the eye that they watch, of course, it is all of the effects. We've seen tornadoes spawn from Helene. We do know of multiple deaths being reported as a result of this hurricane and tornadoes being spawned. One mobile home was overturned. People were killed in that event. And there are a number of situations right now that are ongoing, as you can imagine. And first responders doing their best to keep up with everything as hopefully everybody, as many people as possible, got out of the way of Helene. But you're seeing that this is a record hurricane for Florida. A Cat 4 is a massive storm. We covered it yesterday, but the massive footprint of this storm, you see it moving right now. It's still moving at a fairly decent pace at 26 miles per hour. Wow. That's the movement. That's a pretty good click for a storm like this. You and I were talking in the pre-show meeting that it really is very fast for a storm. So you see again that already we're seeing as we now pass the 1 a.m. Eastern mark, and the latest update from the National Hurricane Center tells us that the eye is officially moving into southern Georgia here. But again, we're seeing massive amounts of rainfall and, of course, high winds from the storm already in Georgia, the entire state of Georgia, really seeing the effects of this. And it is one, again, for the record books. The storm surges, I don't know if anything's been measured officially yet, what would be the highest storm surge they've seen, but it is massive flooding. Both storm surge and rainfall combined create a situation that is extremely dangerous. It is a deadly storm. And so you're seeing, again, the effects of it. You're seeing trees come down. We do see widespread power outages in that region as a result of that soil being saturated. The roots of the trees then become compromised, and then the winds take it from there and knock those trees over onto power lines, and that's where you see power outages. Those power outages could last for quite some time because you're talking about, in some cases, having to repair those lines, rebuild those lines, depending on how bad the damage is. But you can rest assured it's going to be extensive. So one of the things that happens in a situation like this is you actually have a number of organizations, nonprofits, and other organizations that have big rigs that are basically staged just outside this area, outside of the path of the storm, ready to go in with supplies, including ice and power units. They're going to need plenty of generators in this region for the people that are out of power. You're going to get to, of course, Hopefully, the backup generators, like the massive generator we have here behind our building, that keep hospitals running and keep all of those emergency services running, will be able to sustain a storm like this. That's how bad this is. There was question as to if those generators, the massive generators, could hold up to a storm like this. It is one that, again, when they come back and look at the effects and the devastation from all of this, it's going to go on for quite some time, the cleanup.
But the cleanup will be able to start very quickly, just looking at the radar map. By 4 a.m., the vast majority of you have some outer bands let me just look here, at 4 a.m. that may be, over, sort of west of Tampa and stuff like that. But by 4 a.m., the whole thing will basically, the worst part of it will be out of Florida.
Right. Yeah.
So it's moving that quickly. In fact, most of the heavy rain that you see right now. In fact, let me just wait for the radar to loop back again here. Most of the heavy rain right now is actually in. Just look at a little bit in Florida, but most of the heavy rain is in Georgia. I mean, the massive rain, and that's why they're worried about, Atlanta, things like that, the amount of rain. You've already had flash flood warnings, for example, in western South Carolina and western North Carolina. They've been getting pounded, and they'll be getting pounded again overnight with it. So the flooding could just be disastrous. And the wind speed, when they talk about it, it's projected still when it hits, Atlanta, that you may have 80, 90 mile an hour winds.
Right.
You still may have hurricane winds.
Right. Yeah.
And that's still a possibility. But, I guess it came a little bit to the west of Tallahassee. But where Tallahassee is got some of those, very close winds right outside the eye.
Right. USGS tide gauge at Steinhatchee, Florida, earlier reported a water level of 9.6 feet above mean higher high water, as they call it. And that's just one example. They say that's an approximation from that tide gauge, but that's just one example. It could be much, much higher. When we talk about storm surge, it was predicted that it could be as high as 18 to 20 feet in some areas. But again, we don't know of any official measurements right now. As officials are basically telling everyone, if you are in this region, that you should stay put. You should stay in place. Do not leave your structure. Don't go anywhere. But given some of the reports that you and I have seen and been watching in recent hours, of course, it would be near impossible to go anywhere. This is what makes it impossible for first responders in emergencies, which is one of the primary reasons you want everybody out of the way of this storm, because you don't want later these emergency services workers to have to go in, first responders to have to go in and try and rescue someone in a situation like this, because it is impossible, really.
I'm looking at the radar for 7 a.m., and you have half of Georgia that will be clear at that time. If you took a line from Columbus, Georgia, all the way over to Savannah, everything is north of that imaginary line between those two cities. One is on the west side of Georgia, the other side on the east side, and you draw a line there. Everything is above it. Yeah. But you look at, for example, Atlanta still will be getting pounded. I mean, they're going to be pounded all through the night, which is massive. Right. I mean, absolutely massive amounts of rain. And you do have the only thing, I think, if you look at Florida by that time at 7 a.m., you still have one of the way, way outer bands that is still down, will still be down near Naples and heading, southeast up, Naples, right through Palm Bay. If you took a line that way, it's almost like a diagonal slice through Florida, and some around West Palm Beach. Fort Lauderdale could have a little bit at that point, but those are just the remnants of the very, very outer band. through the night. But all of Florida will be clear by the time you get to daybreak, and half of Georgia will be.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I guess that's part of if you're going to find a silver lining here in a storm that moves this fast.
If it wasn't moving fast.
If it was moving very slowly, I can't imagine the devastation. If a storm moves slowly, it's basically these winds just staying in place as it comes ashore and just doing so much destruction. There's going to be enough that is done, but hopefully it means that there is less damage as a result, ultimately, of a fast-moving storm. Again, measured at 26 miles an hour just moments ago, according to the latest reports from the National Hurricane Center, which came out just minutes ago. 26 miles an hour is a pretty good clip.
That's one thing that you and I were talking about. When we saw the cone of uncertainty throughout the week, we were saying, wow, look how fast it must be picking up speed, when you looked at the timeline of it. And I remember saying, wow, this thing might be going 15 to 20 miles an hour. And it hit going, I think, 24, 25, and it's at 26 right now. Mm-hmm. That's the actual movement of the storm, not the winds.
Right.
But the actual movement. I just wonder, when you look at a major hurricane, I'd like to see the history of how fast hurricanes move.
That's interesting. I would love to see that, too. What have some of the fastest hurricanes been, in, especially major hurricanes? Part of the threat, of course, is a slow-moving, massive Category 4. But you have this one moving here. Again, you still have, as the eye wall now moves into southern Georgia, sustained winds at 110 miles an hour, according to the National Hurricane Center just moments ago. And you mentioned they could still be at hurricane force moving well into Georgia, as the eye moves well into Georgia. And so this is a very, very dangerous storm and is moving quickly, but will leave a lot of damage in its wake.
And we'll keep you updated here throughout the night on Hurricane Helene.
Yeah.
And when I lived in Navarre, Florida, never experienced a tropical storm.
Yeah.
For almost the 3 years that I was there, never had a hurricane, nothing that hit. And I never thought about it. And now if I lived on the coast of Florida or even the coast of Texas, that's all I'd be thinking about all the time.
Well,
it's summertime. Yesterday I didn't get anything done because I was just watching Fox Weather all day.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I was doing.
Yeah.
Fox Weather Channel.
Sure.
And I can imagine if I lived there, oh my gosh, I'd just be obsessed.
I was at an event years ago in just outside of Orlando, and it was an outdoor event. And we actually had to work in this rain that was part of a tropical storm. Now, we were well inland, so the winds weren't as bad, but the rain was relentless. I mean, it was so bad. It was just nonstop rain. And the event wasn't canceled. We had things going on, and so we would hit the pause button occasionally. We didn't see in that case. We didn't see any lightning. That'll stop any event. It was all rain coming from that storm. The effects where we were was nothing but rain. Some wind, but it wasn't that bad. Again, we were well inland. That's the closest I've ever gotten to anything of a tropical storm or hurricane status. We've seen it. I've seen the remnants. I've been in areas where right after a hurricane is hit, and the damage is incredible. My brother lives on the coast of Texas, and a major hurricane years ago, they had to go inland, and they lived away from home for about a month. They couldn't go back. It was thank goodness their house didn't have much damage except for their fence, but still, after a month trying to restart your life, our prayers are with everyone that's feeling the effects of Helene. We'll keep you posted throughout the morning.
And we'll wrap up the week. And what a week it has been.
And more to add to it from yesterday.
Oh, I
Wow.
know. More to add. The debate next week.
Yeah.
I'll have the story that says Vance will remain focused on like the three most important topics. Like, yay!
Yeah.
That's advice we've given many times. If you wonder why I'm saying yay,
Right.
But we've got just a great show ahead. 866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Did you know that up to half of all major engine failures are due to poor cooling system maintenance? That's a lot of downtime and can cost drivers big. You expect a lot from your engine, which is why the cooling system must be a part of your maintenance routine. Here's a tip to keep your cooling system in shape and your engine running smooth. Make sure the system is properly filled with coolant at every PM interval and during pre- and post-trip inspections. Underfilling the cooling system can cause corrosion and your engine to overheat. Coolant is also used to keep DEF tanks thawed in the winter. If you notice unusually low coolant levels, be sure to have your cooling system inspected by a professional technician.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, good to see that in New York City there was a not just pro-Hamas, but pro-Hezbollah protest down there. You know,
Wow.
You and I were talking about the debates coming up, but also we're not far away from October 7th, the anniversary. And I've already seen, you know, in media outlets out there. In fact, you saw it yesterday that, okay, the call to arms is starting again.
Right.
Because that's what happens, you know, and the whole anti-Semitism starts again.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. But what a week we've had. This is a story that I think is interesting. We got a ton of audio cuts, by the way. Oh, and Harris the campaign has got to tell Biden, stop it. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the point that Biden is out there selling everything just shows you how desperate the Harris campaign is. We said this about 3 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Remember when they first said Biden's going to come out on the road? We said their internals suck. Otherwise, they would never do that.
Right.
That's a desperation tactic. It has to be. There's no reason, because the whole point of it, you're trying to distance yourself from him, to bring him out on the campaign, and then to see what he said the other day. That still may be the audio cut of the week.
Well, I mean, it demonstrates how bad this was from the beginning, starting with her as a Veep pick back in 2020. You're going with the one, you know, because quite often it's like, okay, let's look from the pool of individuals who got into the primary, right? And let's see who they are and what they represent. Well, out of all of them, she did the worst. We talked about, okay, I don't know, maybe Susan Rice. Now, Susan Rice would have been a bad choice in our opinion, but she would have been better than Kamala Harris. At least when she lies, she can put a sentence together.
Well, yeah, I was going to say she lies better.
You know, and that's it. And so it started there and then went through the, you know, Biden thing of, well, he's too old. And then the media was wondering if she was a draw on the ticket a year ago, and then all of a sudden she's the nominee without getting one vote. Wow.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Showing how hard it is to support Harris. Mark Cuban out there yesterday with Joe Kernan on CNBC. And it was, I'd hate to be Mark Cuban trying to defend Kamala Harris and the Democrats on economics.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, but here's one of the back and forths here. Here we go.
All right.
Okay.
Do you think any of the 40-year highs in inflation are attributable to price gouging? And do you care that that is the entire premise on...
No, you're misrepresenting what she's saying, Joe.
Now, that's a lie. That's a lie from Cuban right there. Kernan is not representing what Harris has said. But let's continue. Here we go.
Watching her ads now.
Okay, so then let's talk
You've
about-
seen the ads.
Yes, of course. Right.
I'm going to
Price
bring
gouging
down...
during a crisis.
Okay,
During a
but
crisis.
what do you think caused the 40-year... Do you think supermarket
No,
gouging had anything to do with...
No.
You think it was putting too much stimulus on top of a supply constrained...
Biden and...
Then it just looks to me like they're not being truthful with this, and they're trying to deflect blame.
No, but...
There you go. And I want to play another audio from that interview. This one is just classic. Here we go.
When she was unable to answer the question about are you better off now than 4 years ago, I think that was illustrative.
Well, 4 years ago, literally,
that
we're in a pandemic. It was an easy
can-
answer.
We can look at exactly what happened. He's already been president. And we can look at what happened when she was vice president. And it's not good, the comparison.
Being the president, Joe, as you know, is different than being vice president. It's not close, right?
So she can take credit for the good things that happened with Biden, but she didn't have anything to do with the bad things.
But, Mark, are you awake? Are you in Dallas or? Apparently not, because it looked like he was in studio there. Biden already said she agreed with him. In fact, he delegated everything to her.
It's official.
It's official.
Biden never lies.
Right. But you watch it, and Cuban knowing that he's not winning the argument. Look, he's making some of the same things that we have about the Republicans and the populist economic agenda that we disagree with. You know, we don't agree with Trump coming out and saying 10% that the federal government's going to basically do price control on capital with credit cards.
Right.
And, yeah, you can get Trump on that. I'm not voting for Trump because we'll deal with that when that happens. And, number one, I don't think he can do it alone. Number two, you're not going to get Congress to agree to that, even if it's Republican-led. That's not going to happen.
Even temporarily, you're not going to get them to agree to that.
Right. And I don't know how he could justify it through an executive order to do that. So when Cuban talks about that, he's correct on that. But he's trying to sit there and say, and that would be the whole thing. Even if Trump got that through and believed that and did that, it's still way, way better than the Harris plan. Wall Street Journal, we'll get to this in a little bit, tore apart her economic plan yesterday and just said, actually, what she promoted in her economic plan is she wants to spend more than Biden wants to spend, and she wants to put in the biggest tax increase in American history. It's the same thing from the Democrats that hasn't worked. Think about all the debt that we have and how people are suffering. Think of all the money that we spend, and people are still suffering. Why? Because there's consequences to that spending and borrowing, and that's inflation.
It is an example here with Mark Cuban, and he's done this repeatedly, as to where her surrogates are and how desperate they are. They're all over the place. If you listen to, quite frankly, I think the best surrogate for Donald Trump is his beat pick, J.D. Vance. I mean, Ramaswamy's right up there, too. But they go straight to the point. They're consistent, and all of her surrogates are all over the place. Sorry, but Stephanie Rule is a surrogate for Harris. There's no way around that. And one day she's saying she doesn't need to do interviews, and the next day she won't answer the question. Well, it wasn't the next day, but it was a few days later. She wouldn't answer the question. It's like, well, what are you going to, where are you going to go with this?
And then
because
she
they're,
said,
they're desperate in trying to defend her.
And then yesterday she said, what was it? She really doesn't have to answer the questions again. Oh, here they are. Non-answers are okay. There aren't clear and direct. These aren't clear and direct issues.
No issues are really issues.
Well, it's your job. It's your job as the questionnaire to make those issues clear and direct.
Well, that's the whole point.
Why are you doing an interview? Why are you doing an interview and asking questions that don't point out what are clear and direct?
You know, I really miss Tim Russert. I miss having Tim Russert as, and they called him the moderator on Meet the Press back then. But you could apply that to Tim Russert, because Tim Russert, it was devil's advocate, didn't matter who was sitting across, and he would say, you're saying this now, and here's what you said, whatever it was, a week ago, a year ago, here's the quote from you, boom, and put up the quote. Why the difference? I mean, he would go straight to the point. You know, you have now it is, and I don't know on how many examples we need to give. They get angry if you try and challenge them. Stephanopoulos, Welker on Meet the Press, all of them get angry when they're talking to Republicans on their show.
And you could see it in Cuban's face, too. He didn't know where to go.
Exactly.
You could see it in his face.
And that frustration comes down to, and I'm sure Cuban and others would, yeah, but they're misrepresenting. Nope. No, we're not. And here's the thing. There's a very easy way to clear all of this up. And it's been, I think, keep watching. They have a counter that keeps going on Fox News. I think they're at day 67 or something with no major press conference. She can have her own press conference and say, we're going to open it up. We're going to open it up. Wide open. What do you want to talk about? If I'm running for president, you're going to know my convictions long before, in fact, I am at the point of, think about this. We're weeks past the convention. We're less than 6 weeks. We're 5.5 weeks from the election day. The convention was eons ago, and still no clarity from her. We know where she stands. We know what she's about. But here's the problem that they have. Her campaign suffers the more she's in hiding. I don't know if they think, hey, it worked for Biden in 2020, so it'll work for us. I don't know if that's the thinking here, but I suspect you and I both believe she doesn't have the confidence in herself. Say what you will about Biden. With all of his cognitive issues, he was never lacking confidence in getting out and talking to people. Now, he would flub it, but he didn't care. He would get out there and talk endlessly to anybody that tell me I'm not supposed to. Clearly, someone was telling him, or they were keeping him from going out. And in 2020, he was in the basement, and they had the cover of COVID. But here, the problem with that is that the building is on fire, and they are looking away. They're looking at another building and not saying anything to the media. Everybody's wondering where they are. Why are you in hiding? And when you leave it to the people to make basically come to their own conclusion as to why you're hiding, then it becomes very bad for you. The only exception to that is the desperation in the surrogates, including Mark Cuban and Stephanie Rule or anybody else in the liberal media that is trying so in vain to defend her when she's not talking herself.
Yeah. And then when she says something plainly and promotes something plainly, then the surrogates out there, well, no, you're misrepresenting what she said. Stop it, Mark.
Yeah.
She made it clear about price controls.
Yep.
She made it absolutely clear that's what she would wish to do.
Yep.
It's just like, we're not going to give Trump a pass on the 10% credit card thing. He said it.
Yep.
I don't want government putting in price controls on capital. I don't like the manipulation of the dollar from the Fed. And I don't want price controls across the board or on groceries from the Harris campaign.
Right.
It's that simple.
Yep.
But as I've said, you can pick or choose any candidate if you're a conservative and say, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. Because as we said before, Trump has never been a conservative. He's been a moderate.
Yep.
That's why we have said being a moderate, the demonization of him is like, what? Where's this coming from? I disagree with a lot of the populist narrative, but the fact is that is in the mainstream and has been in the mainstream of American politics since I've been alive.
Yeah.
And as I said again, it's not those economic things that are going to be tough to get through Congress, and I don't believe most of them ever would. I'm not voting for Trump because of those. I'm voting for Trump because I wish to end the weaponization of government. I wish to end the left attempting to pick away at the Constitution of the United States. This is about, to me, the long-term survival of the republic. That's what I'm concerned about. The day-to-day things and economic things, everybody's going to be limited because of the debt that we have and what we're spending. That's going to moderate. We've gotten to the point where you can't do it anymore.
Right.
You can't do it to the extent that they wish to do it. Otherwise, the American public is going to feel it through inflation, recession, whatever.
Yep.
You've come to the point where reality has hit on economics, and it's going to affect whether you're a Republican and want to spend more money or a Democrat who wants to spend more money. And if either party believes that their candidate can manipulate an economy to success by regulation, if you wish to take away the regulation, but when you say 10%, as Trump has on credit cards, you're regulating in a negative way businesses and capital.
Right.
So either side, and this is where we hate, I don't hate anything. It's just where I dislike where the Republican Party is going on the populist economy, that, oh, well, our guy can run the economy better. Now, not all Republicans believe that. I want to make that clear. But go on social media, you'll see a ton of Trump supporters do.
Sure.
And so that's a challenge that the Republican Party has. But that's not why I'm voting for Trump.
No.
Not why I'm voting for him.
No.
I'm voting weaponization of government. It's gone too far. The lawfare that he has been a victim of. Oh, and we'll get to I didn't think that any New York court would look at the civil trial. I thought it had to get to a federal court eventually, but you've got the New York, was it the Supreme Court?
The appeals court. The appeals court.
The appeals court looking at what James did on the civil, the $454 trillion, whatever billion, million dollar lawsuit. They looked at it. They're very skeptical. I didn't think that would happen in New York.
Yeah.
But I think there's a great fear about how far James has gone.
Yeah, this is a mid-level appeals court in New York. And the justice panel, the panel of justices, making some solid points here. And it's very interesting to see what they did. Jonathan Turley covering a couple of those points. But it's what we look at as the obvious in a situation like that. Letitia James would basically, if that were successful against Trump, you would kill business in New York.
Yeah.
The ability to negotiate anything would be gone.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Van's preparing for the vice president debate. How? I haven't heard about Harris. Is she going to disappear for the next? Or not Harris? Walz. Is he just going to disappear for the next week?
Yeah, it makes you wonder. I don't know. Maybe he's working on his car.
Oh, I'm sorry. That got to me. And also, we'll get to some of this really interesting polling here. for the first time in decades since 2004. And then before that, until you have to go back until the Reagan administration, more voters identify as Republican.
Yeah, very interesting data looking at that. And it's, I think it could indicate where people are motivated. Here's the point, the one takeaway I can say for sure. There is no indication that Democrats are motivated to get to the poll. I could be wrong, but I'm saying there's no indication at this point.
Right.
And some of this data kind of backs that up. We'll go over that coming up.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. The 2 a.m. Eastern, 1 a.m. Central Time National Hurricane Center update has come in 90 miles an hour, so still a Cat 1 over the eye, or what's left of the eye, over southern Georgia. Almost all the heavy rain is completely out of Florida and the Panhandle at this point.
Hurricane Helene still moving at 26 miles an hour. That's a very quick pace for a hurricane. As such, it's going to be, as we mentioned earlier, basically the most of the effects, certainly the damaging effects, will be far above Florida, but in fact, about halfway by daylight. The eye of the storm somewhere around, it'll be about 7 a.m. According to the forecast, the eye of the storm somewhere around Augusta, Georgia. And so you look at, again, how fast this is moving. Still a very dangerous storm, as you mentioned, Gary. 90-mile-an-hour straight winds and lots of rain, tons of rain. Don't have any more measurements. I'm looking here from the National Hurricane Center in terms of, all right, let's see here. All right. All right, this was the approximation of what it could do. The approximation of where the water would be. The storm surge, again, at the time of high tide, and they were saying 15 to 20 feet in certain areas. I don't know of any measurements that they have had in recent hours that tell us what has reached what, but you can certainly see from any of the videos that you have seen coming out of this area how much water there is. And it's always the case with a Cat 4 hurricane. Massive storm surge, but then on top of that, the rainfall. We'll keep you posted. We'll follow this throughout the morning. And
just looking at the power outage tracker from Fox, 1.3 million people in Florida without power. Georgia, 244,000. South Carolina, 23,000. Tennessee, 3,800. So that's what we have here at the moment. And as Eric said, we will keep you updated throughout the morning. Do want to play this one audio cut, though, with the advice here. We're going to play this audio cut with this advice that Biden gave about hurricane preparation a little ways back.
Let me be clear. If you're in a state where hurricanes often strike, like Florida or the Gulf Coast or into Texas, a vital part of preparing for hurricane season is to get vaccinated now.
Wow. Yeah, remember that one?
That was one of our classic hits.
Yeah, and don't forget,
retro hits.
Keep your pets, especially your cats, indoors. Wow, get vaccinated. A vital part of it.
And he was reading that. So
put down quit boarding up those windows.
Yes, get vaccinated.
You're not even vaccinated. How are you boarding up windows? What are you, insane? This is, wow. That's how bad it was.
I know, an oldie but goodie.
Yeah.
We're your classic hit, audio cut, oldie station.
Well, but we look back at and what we're learning now, what we knew then, the overreaction to COVID, but we saw it for what it was. Nobody wanted to listen to us. Conservatives know power grab when they see it. They know a very giddy liberal Democratic Party and the liberal media who just wants to jump straight into crisis mode. There's no doubt to the elderly, COVID still is dangerous. But that's been the case with other viruses basically forever. The elderly have always been more susceptible and at greater risk for viruses. Part of getting old. And there should have been precautions in place. Beyond that, the power grab over and over again, and the insanity. And how many Karens did they have out there as soldiers? It was everywhere. And that was just one example of the insanity. Best way to be prepared for a hurricane is to get vaccinated for COVID. Shut up.
Well, again, that's where we have said that Democrats believe that the people that support them are complete idiots and will buy anything.
Yep.
And, that's one of the things that I hope is happening. I hope that 55 years after my father told me, Gary, you're going to find out that people want to be BS'd, and the bigger the BS, the more they want it. And I, as the young idealist 14-year-old.
And now you're even older because today's your birthday. Happy birthday. Or happy BS day. Let's call it that. Getting old is BS. We all know it. It's a load of garbage. Blow out your BS candles, would you?
Well, the thing is, I forgot it was my birthday.
Yeah.
I'm just so busy with stuff and happened to go to my phone, and a bunch of my friends, that were up later, I checked it, this is over an hour ago. Most of them are saying, hey, it's not your birthday yet, but it's going to be going to sleep. Happy birthday. Let me be the first to wish you a happy birthday. And I looked at it just during the top of the hour, and I went, oh, damn, it's my birthday.
Yeah, right.
So, no, I have no special plans. Everybody's asking, what are you doing? Absolutely nothing. I'm going to finish trimming my bushes and work on cutting the tree in the backyard.
All right.
And working out.
Okay.
And any special plans? Is anybody going to sing happy birthday to me tomorrow? Only if I talk to my father. And then my 98-year-old father will either get on the harmonica. 98-and-a-half-year-old father will get on the harmonica and play happy birthday to me. He used to play the piano, but he does the harmonica lately.
All right.
So,
all right, good.
Or leave me a message. I mean, that's always great to get a message, and there's a harmonica in the background.
Yeah. My fourth grandchild, she turned 16 yesterday. We're having her party Saturday. So
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, what will happen is when I'm back next time, whenever it is, I think, 3 weeks from now? Yeah, 3 weeks. They'll just celebrate my sisters, the family celebrate my sisters and my birthday.
We do a fall birthday because a celebration because two of my daughters and my wife Actually, technically, 3 of my daughters, because my youngest daughter just had a birthday earlier this week, we were already into fall then. But we do a fall birthday dinner kind of thing at the house, and we'll do that coming up sometime in October.
But it was back in 1969 as a young 14-year-old BSer. And I told you, my father, the biggest insult my father ever threw at me, ever, was not when he said you're a liar and a BSer as a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
It was when he compared me to somebody who we all knew was we used to make fun of because this person would BS and lie like crazy, and everybody knew it.
Right.
Even we did as kids.
Right.
And the one thing that we recognized as kids was BS from adults.
Right.
And then you had
and
to
vice versa.
But then you had to come to the realization as you started getting 14, 15, 16. Well, wait a minute. I'm mocking these people, and my father's telling me I'm just like them. That hurt more than my father could call me a liar. He could call me a BSer, which I was.
Mm-hmm.
But it's when he compared me to somebody else. I don't know why. I don't know what in the human condition or what in my mind made that just go to my soul. Like, that's the worst insult you could possibly throw at me.
Yeah.
You just didn't call me a liar or a BSer. You compared me to someone that we all knew obviously was a BSer, and he was saying, everybody knows you're doing it too.
Right, yeah.
And he goes, and you don't want to be that in life. You don't want to be that person in life who walks around BSing and lying, and everybody knows you are but doesn't tell you.
Yeah, right.
Because then you're the ultimate fool.
Right.
Yeah. But I just wonder if that's what's going on. Maybe in just this election, maybe I was looking at it was a guy, Anton Daniels, who was a social influencer. He's black, conservative, pro-Trump, and there was on his website there was a black focus group of 10 blacks. None of them have anything to say positive about Kamala, and basically what you got out of them is she's BSing.
Yeah, right.
She's BSing. She doesn't know what to do. She's BSing. And you really hear that more than anything. It's like she's going into an interview and has no clue as to what the job entails. And you, as the employer, want this. What are you going to do on this? Well, I was born in a middle-class family. I don't care. What are you going to do to solve the problem for me? And that's what you're getting. You're getting that from young people, too, that's saying, I don't know what she's going to do.
Well, this is it.
I can't.
They do detect it, and because they see it as a lack of confidence. Say what you will about, again, Barack Obama, Joe Biden. Even with Joe Biden's cognitive issues, he didn't have a lack of confidence. If they would let him, he'd go out and talk to anybody. And he would say it. Well, they tell me I'm not supposed to take questions. So let's take some questions. Barack Obama, well, he was filled with BS too. But he had the confidence. He wasn't afraid to do interviews. And that's what that's the problem, is that she doesn't have the confidence, so she's full of it. You're not telling the truth. When you have conviction, when you really believe in something, and certainly when you're running for president as the nominee and the current vice president, you should have a presence that owns the room, much like the former president. Say what you will about Trump. He walks into the room, it's his. He owns it.
Well, you and I were talking earlier off the air that she did, was at the podium with Zelensky, had a few words and walked off without taking any questions.
Right.
Trump's meeting today with him, right?
Yeah.
It's today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guarantee he's going to want a microphone there where he talks about the fact, well, now that we've had a great talk, there are some things that, when I become president, that we can work out and get this thing done. I expect that's what you'll see.
Yeah, because Trump's negotiation at every turn starts with convincing, right?
Yeah.
He has to convince other people to agree with him. That's been who he is all of his life. When you think about any business negotiation, that's it. You're looking to get more in your favor. And that's certainly what you do. And we've talked about it in the past, even sometimes to a fault. He's not afraid. He'll wait till the last member of the media leaves the room if he has to. He'll take questions. I don't know what time they'll have allotted, but it wouldn't shock me at all if he sits there and takes questions.
Well, but he doesn't have to.
No,
he does.
No.
Maybe before he did. He does. If he takes 3 or 4 questions and talks about the fact that you will see. I would be very surprised if you didn't see a very cordial relationship after they met and that presentation brought that, look, we can get things done together. We're the United States and we can work things out. We can get this done. And I expect to see that from him because what he wrote about Zelensky was he was, quite happy that they were meeting together.
Right.
It seemed to be quite complimentary. And that's what you want. You want to present that. But the fact is she did it, then walked right off.
Right.
He's going to take questions. Right there, you see the difference.
Yeah.
And the press understands it. New York Times, we'll get to the New York Times article that pounded her for the Stephanie Ruhle interview on MSNBC. They went after her. I mean, everybody knows. That's why I don't think, we said Monday, we think the election's over because there is nothing new to bring to it. She's not going to bring anything new. We played the one analyst from CNN, obviously a Harris supporter, who said she's not bringing anything fresh or new. There's nothing there. And we went, well, what fresh and new can she bring? Nobody can define what she should do that's supporting her, but they all say she needs to do something.
And there's no energy. When you have the New York Times, they're all looking at her go, this is her base.
Yeah.
Going, but. And we've heard the liberal media in recent weeks over and over again do the same thing. There's no energy. In order to get people to vote for you, there has to be some energy in your campaign, and the nominee is the one who creates it.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
After fuel, an owner-operator's second biggest variable cost is tires. To save, get as much life out of them as possible with good habits. Maintain proper inflation. It's free and easy, yet it's the highest saving maintenance you can perform on the truck. Improper inflation is by far the greatest reason tires fail early. Perform routine maintenance. If a technician can by hand initiate irregular movements in tie rod ends, kingpins, wheel bearings, and torque rods, that spells trouble. Fight irregular wear by replacing suspension components. On the steer axle, change your shocks at least as often as you change your tires. On the drive axle, replace shocks halfway through the tire's life, and when the tires are changed too. Finally, employ good driving habits. You have full control here. More conservative driving over rough surfaces helps reduce wear. Speeding, hard braking, curbing, and tight turns cause tires to wear fast. On the other hand, steady acceleration, braking, and steering can extend the life, saving a bundle. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section on the website for more details on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, taking, this is the one thing, taking all the specific issues out of it that we pay attention to, because we're issue-driven. And I think most of our audience, our great listeners, are issue-driven, too. You're voting for you're voting for the person that's closest to what your agenda is. In this election, as we've said before, for me, the big issue, way above everything else, because everything else economically is going to take care of itself because we're in such a terrible position. It's sort of like you've reached the credit limit, and anything you do is going to cause problems. So that's going to temper spending from the Democrats in the future. Over the next decade, it's going to temper it from Republicans. We finally reached where reality has hit economics. So you can promise everything you want, but you really can't. You really can't do it. And there's some serious issues that have to be solved economically in this country. But the big reason, as I've said, is to stop the weaponization of government. It's just you cannot continue this country with the weaponization of government as you have right now with what has been going on in the FBI, the IRS, the intelligence agencies. It's just unacceptable for any republic to allow that to continue to happen, and that's why Trump has to win.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Interesting, Eric, when you look at the different news outlets out there, all liberal outlets, and I just did a Google search for the Trump civil suit, and it's amazing the number of, looking at Politico, looking at thehill.com, everyone is talking about, one of the lead stories at thehill.com is the Trump civil suit, where the mid-level appeals court in New York is looking at it, and the questions they asked are exactly the questions that need to be asked that we had talked about. And let me just get to it here. Let me find it here. I've got so many windows open on my computer.
Yeah, Jonathan Turley was writing about it. But what's interesting, you and I also noticed the liberal media actually took note of what the justices were saying in this case.
Yeah. A New York appeals panel on Thursday appeared wary of the state's civil fraud case against former President Trump that ended in a $464 million judgment against him and his businesses. As we said at the time, it's absurd, and we went point by point through it at that time. But what did the judges say? Well, during arguments lasting more than an hour, the 5-judge panel on the appellate division questioned whether any constraints applied to the law New York Attorney General Letitia James used against Trump. How do we draw a line, or at least put up some guardrails to know when the Attorney General is operating well within her admittedly broad sphere, and when she is going into an area that wasn't intended for her jurisdiction? Let me see. Let me just get to, because I got Trump's attorneys. That's not the important part, because we know what they said. This is important to bring up. Trump's attorney, D. John Sauer, who represented the former president before the Supreme Court in his immunity challenge, argued that before the panel that the state's case was brought too late and that decades-old financial statements should not be the basis for such a crippling financial penalty. Sauer also reiterated arguments made at the trial that the banks wanted to work with the Trump organization. They did their own due diligence, and they found no fraud.
Exactly.
They did all their own due diligence. Sauer said the uncontracted testimony in the summary judgment record is everything we did was independent. We didn't rely on those numbers at all, the bank said. And they don't. That's like, as we have said, the appraisal. I can appraise my home and get an appraiser. The bank doesn't care.
Yeah.
The bank doesn't care what my appraisal is. They only care what their appraisal is. It goes, they did their own due diligence. Justice David Friedman said, because I've gone through the case that you've cited, and all of them involved a consumer protection aspect. It involved protection of the market, Justice David Friedman said. You don't have anything like that here.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, that's it. It's the New York's Deputy Solicitor General, Judith Vale, actually argued on the state's behalf, as according to The Hill, that the law gives the Attorney General broad, using the word broad, discretion. But two justices interrupted her opening remarks to ask whether there are any other examples of the state suing equally sophisticated partners in such a manner. We looked at it and we said, okay, who's issuing the complaint? Sometimes you will see the attorney general of a state go after a party on behalf of the citizens of that state. And that's part of their job. But where is the actual complaint here? And how much, again, the banks, all the parties involved here, did their own due diligence as they would, because they're lending money, their money, to someone else.
The fact that we have to explain this is so stupid.
It is stupid.
Isn't it? I mean,
and
that's
the
why I'm
same
laughing.
for insurance companies. Insurance companies are about risk. That's the entire basis of what they do. And their own due diligence is critical. You can walk in and go, yeah, I got this. And by the way, keep in mind, on some of those items, Trump had on there the disclaimer.
Yeah. They had a disclaimer. This is what I believe.
This is what I believe it's worth.
Right.
Because, again, we go back to any central appraisal district or anything when we're talking about the valuation of something, to get more specific on this case, then there are ways to assess those values. And you can do that informally based on experience. Like as a homeowner, I know roughly what my home is worth. I know what the central appraisal district says my home is worth. And then we can go back and forth, or we can agree. And a real estate agent can also come in. They can and they'll do a different kind of comp. It's not just that your home is in this neighborhood and it is this size. It's also the amenities. It's also recent sales. It's all of these elements that go into a whole list of criteria that build the comp value. And that's what you're looking for. It is the back and forth of negotiation. But when it comes to the charges here from Letitia James going after Trump in creating, because they use the words, in trying to create favorable terms with insurance companies and banks. Tell me who isn't.
Well, as we have stated before, because the judges are worried about the broad aspect of the law that was created that has not been used except for Donald Trump.
Right.
You and I gave examples where it could be used, because if the law has no parameters to it, if fraud is you misstating something that is not the final agreement, and for example, MSRPs on vehicles, nobody ever pays it.
Right.
All the automobile dealers are making you believe that's what it's
the
worth.
Manufacturers, the OEMs.
The manufacturers, yeah, the OEMs.
That's
yeah.
the first.
You're right, not the
M
dealership.
stands for.
Not the dealership,
Yeah.
it's the manufacturers.
Right.
Very good. But thank you for correcting me on that. The manufacturers are saying this is what it's worth.
Yep.
That's the price. Now you negotiate from that price, but that price is based on what? Nothing.
Right.
They picked out the number.
They put that second word in there. The S is suggested.
Right.
All right. And this is, but that's part of what we know in marketing, because you would change all of the parameters and criteria in marketing anything in the state of New York if Letitia James were successful in her case against Trump.
And the other question we asked is, what stops the state from going after you when you decide to dispute your property tax assessment from the county?
Right. Right.
Because if you sit there and say, and I remember going through this, I've only fought mine once, but when I fought it, it was 2-1. I almost got some, I remember I looked at it and I said, okay, I can make the case that, I'll just use an example here. Let's say the final appraisal that they said was $100,000, or when I got the appraisal for the house, it was $100,000. I'm just making the number simple for you. I don't want to tell you about my $1 billion house, but let's say it was $100,000, and I sat there and went, I think I can make the case. Even though I have a pool, I can make the case based on the square footage of it and everything else that my house should be $60,000. Now I knew that probably it would be 80 or 90, but I could make the case that it was 60, and I tried to make the case that it was 60. One of the appraisers agreed with me. I'm like, 2 didn't, 1 did, and I realized, if I would have said 80, they might have agreed with me. But it stood at the 100,000. Again, those are made up numbers, by the way, just to make it simple.
Right.
100,000. So did I commit fraud by approaching the government and stating that I believe my house was worth this, which means I would have paid less in property taxes, which then would have affected other people because I'm not paying the amount that the state believes that I should really pay, which was the final conclusion of the appraisers, which was 100,000. So they could go after anybody who was trying to negotiate on their property taxes.
Any negotiation,
yes.
Because because again, the charge is trying to gain favorable terms. Who's not? In every negotiation, each party is.
American pickers would have to stay out of New York.
Right. Well, you couldn't negotiate anything.
You couldn't? No. How could no negotiating?
There could be negotiating anything.
Because whatever you negotiate as a final price would be viewed as the right price.
Right.
So anything that either side negotiated would be viewed as fraudulent.
Well, look at one of the aspects of real estate actually is the celebrity value and valuation. Like when I sold one of my homes, I listed it as it's the home of a former member of Aerosmith. That adds value to the home. Now, when they find out that's complete BS, the value plummets. But seriously, especially in New York, if you and it really would be true for now with Trump, since he ran for office and then became president, the valuation has, let's just say it's varied. Let's just say the market has gone soft. But actually, now he's more popular than ever, and so the valuation could skyrocket. There is now a clearly a situation where you look, I forget who the celebrity was. They listed their home, and this is in California, but often it's in New York. Celebrity home, and it adds value. I bought the home from, don't tell anybody, but I bought the home from so-and-so. And that's something that if you listed it, the agent that lists it and says, well, it was owned by so-and-so and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but a real comp, the real estate value is way off. It's much higher than any other comp in the area and blah, 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 blah. You could go after anybody. I was talking to the production staff about Antiques Roadshow for some reason. My wife and I have been watching old episodes. PBS posts them on YouTube and just watching this. Well, we believe this art piece could be worth $100,000. This one, okay, wait a minute. To that point, they take them to auction. And they're bidding. Well, the bidding starts at so-and-so. Wait a minute. You created a valuation that wasn't. By the way, a valuation that doesn't always last. Sometimes you do lose money in those things. Well, people need to go to prison, according to Letitia James. Yeah. Anybody who wanted to negotiate the price of something, the value is what somebody is willing to pay for it. That's what the current value is.
Right.
Period.
The negotiation, unless you're saying under perjury, if you said if the appraiser came in and said, here's what it's worth, and you said the appraiser said it was worth something else, that would be fraud.
Exactly.
That would be fraud at that point.
That's clear fraud. That did not happen here.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Coming up following the top of the hour, a few more things we want to say on what the appeals court, the mid-level appeals court, had to say about the Trump civil suit, Letitia James and her civil suit against Donald Trump, which doesn't look good for it. We'll get to that. Plus, a couple of polls out there, and these aren't necessarily polls on the election, but polls as to where the American public stands politically right now. Mm-hmm. And for the first time in decades, more voters now identify as GOP by the Gallup poll. Then you have another poll that you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, it was about voter registration.
Okay.
And it showed a massive decline in voter registration for the Democrats. We'll take a look at that.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. You know, the one point, just to finish off on this whole, the mid-appeals court in New York, looking at the Trump civil lawsuit and having many questions about it. I think that Trump's lawyer, I don't know how you'd bring this up. But the funny thing is, as we have said, remember Judge, it was Engeron, who was the judge on that one. Remember the judge was talking about the fact of, it was the judge, I believe, not even the prosecutor. It was a judge, remember, talking about Mar-a-Lago and how much it was worth?
Oh, yeah.
And it was like,
way undervalued.
Commercial real estate people said. And
Are you kidding me?
And we had said, well, technically, the judge saying that with a completely inaccurate appraisal of Trump to prosecute him would be, under the New York State law, under the broad revision, fraud in order to incarcerate someone illegally and unconstitutionally.
Right.
I mean, that's how dumb this law is, because it was so broad, it's unconstitutional. And as the judges looked at it, they go, well, there's no parameters. You could sue anybody for anything that they have said. How do you decide what fraud is? That's the problem. Fraud, number one, is when you have a victim. Clear fraud is when you have a victim. We said, I was defrauded. This person told me they were going to pay this for it, and they didn't pay me for it. Mm-hmm. Clearly, it's fraud. If Trump got an appraisal from an appraiser and Trump put down on a document that the appraiser said that it was worth this amount when the appraiser said something else. But Trump himself, in an appraisal, can put whatever he wants, and the bank does their own due diligence. Everybody knows, including those judges, that's what the law is. There has to be clearly victim somehow, or a clear misstating of what someone else who is in official capacity, like an appraiser,
Right.
tells you, and then you lie about it on a form, that form says if you lie on this form, you could be charged with fraud or perjury.
Right.
And none of those things happen, and everybody knows it. And there has to be a victim. There's got to be a victim. You can't sit there and say, well, no, it's the greater victim would be the state of New York. How?
How? Yeah, exactly. The case was built on nothing in order to achieve one goal, and that was to get Trump. All of these cases were. The danger is that the fallout from the precedent that they set would be on everybody else. In the case of the Letitia James case, there is no way I would do business ever in the state of New York again if she were successful in this. And you would see, I think a number of businesses are watching this whole thing going, we have to decide what's going to happen here. Because here's the other thing, too. Even if she loses here, she has set a precedent in that you'll have other DAs, you'll have other attorney generals that will decide they want to move on their political enemy or someone they don't like. Whatever it may be, that precedent is set, and every business in New York has to consider that. Because if you're the target of if this is your case, if the Attorney General of New York comes at you and you're a business, well, you're probably not going to get the same attention that Donald Trump would get when they come at him because of who he is. That has to be a concern in the mind of everyone who makes a decision or who is in New York right now doing business. Well, because they're afraid that they'll come after you.
It depends.
They'll make a move on you.
It depends, though, how she loses. If she loses, if this thing goes all the way up to the New York State, I forgot which is the highest court. I don't know if it was the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court. I forgot which.
Yeah, the Supreme Court
is in New York. Some states it's the Court of Appeals.
Yeah, I know this one is a mid-level, but I'm almost positive it's the Supreme Court.
Oh no, this is a mid-level court. I know this.
Yeah, right.
But if they get to the highest court in New York State, and New York State says the law is unconstitutional, then that precedent is gone. If it's decided that just the Trump case but I don't see how you can. Here's my point. I don't see. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. I don't know how they may finagle this, but I don't know how they don't look at this and say, if they're going to say you've gone too far on the law. They seem to be confused on the law, that this law is just too broad that it could do everything. I don't know how you say, well, Trump, we're dismissing all the charges against Trump because of what? Right. And my next thing would be because it's unconstitutional. If they say the law is unconstitutional and the legislature has to rewrite it to be more specific, then that precedent is gone. Letitia James or any prosecutor couldn't use that, because that law has been found to be unconstitutional at that point.
Even if she loses in a big way that is very clear. If you're a decision maker for a company, whether you're the COO, CFO, or CEO, you have to be concerned because of how she applied this. It's not just this law. You have to be concerned that they will come after their enemy or a company that they want to demonize for whatever reason, whether it's politically driven, or they just want to make you the bad guy. That would be my concern. Even if she loses in a big way, that's very clear to everybody. I'd still have a concern that it's not just Letitia James. You look at Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, but go outside the state of New York. This is going on all across this country where they're weaponizing these positions in order to go after individuals.
What you're saying,
parents at meetings.
If she'll perverse, if this is a perversion of this law than any other law, they will use.
Exactly.
They won't follow the law.
Exactly.
It may get overturned, but it doesn't.
The process of it would cost you.
Right, but it doesn't matter.
Right.
Their goal is to destroy you.
Exactly.
Their goal is to force you to agree with them. You know, look, the Adams case, I don't know. When I looked at the when I looked at the charges against him, I said, well, these charges should be, if he's guilty, these charges should be pretty easy to figure out because you're talking about everything that's financial records.
If you can prove bribery and all of these things should have very clear evidence if it's a real case. Yeah.
You know, you'd have the connect the dots down there. So once the actual evidence comes out, pre-trial or whatever, and it starts being analyzed, then you'll know. But until that happens, we know that the Department of Justice will engage in lawfare against their political enemies. And they have against Donald Trump, and they'll give favor to the, as we saw in the classified documents case. We'll go after one, but we won't go after the other because the other is a old, feeble man. And then the Democrats even force him out of being president, yet he's still president of the United States.
Well, and that's my observation with the whole Mayor Adams thing. If it is a solid case against him, even, well, often on situations like this, liberals kind of turn the other cheek. They ignore it. They don't, there's rumblings in the, in the office or in the, on the streets that this happened or that happened. Yeah, but, nothing was ever done about it. Oh, wait, you spoke up about immigration. You spoke up against the agenda.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we had to pull that one out. Even if it's a solid case against him, we believe nobody is above the law. But Democrats often do, and they turn the other cheek. It will be interesting to see where that goes. But this case with this mid-level appeals court in New York is very interesting in the comments that were made by these justices to basically say, look, you really haven't made a clear case here. But look at the Alvin Bragg thing. Very different case, but again, built on nothing. Built on nothing. That would have me greatly concerned. I think every major company doing business in New York, doing business really anywhere, as I mentioned, these cases are in New York, but this isn't exclusive to that state. The mentality of we'll come after you and apply it even if we believe we're going to lose. Even if we think in the end we're going to lose, it'll cost you. You look at the Michael Flynn thing. Well, it'll cost you every dime, your entire life savings and every bit of your wealth. We're not Donald Trump. We're the average person. But make noise. And again, Michael Flynn, a different case, but that's not the point. The point is how they approach it will break everybody along the way that gets in our way and will come after you, and it will cost you. We may not win in the end, but you'll lose.
Well, it's just like the radical transgender movement. Same thing. The females, you don't say anything or we'll destroy your career.
Right.
You won't be able to, we won't be able to, you'll lose your scholarship.
Yep.
We're going to go after you. We're going to hunt you wherever you go.
Right.
Because you believe, think about this, because you believe that women should compete against women, will destroy your life.
Yeah. How dare you stand up? We'll come after you.
Right. And it's the same thing here. that it's like, okay, we can use, doesn't matter whether the court overturns it later on, abuse every law, go after it, bankrupt them. I forgot who it was. I can't think of the guy's name who, this goes back, probably 4 years ago, who said, I have to go and testify. The Democrats are calling me to testify constantly. Every time I testify, it costs me $50,000 that I don't have.
Right. You have to have the attorneys.
I've got to have the attorneys.
You've got to pay it. You got to be there.
Right.
You got a subpoena. You got to go.
Yep. You got to go, and I can't. The average person can't afford to do that.
Exactly.
And so what we'll do is we'll destroy you somehow, and that's part of the lawfare that we're seeing right now.
Yep.
That is exclusively coming from liberals.
Yep.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Here's one of the audio cuts of the week that I wanted to play because it's Scott Jennings talking about what's going on right now, this week, in the both campaigns.
I would just say the spate of polls that came out yesterday, Quinnipiac, our CNN polling, the Gallup poll indicators right now, the nervous campaign this morning is the Harris campaign. They're not where they need to be with young voters. They're not where they need to be with voters of color, working class voters. They're not achieving the margins that they need that Joe Biden was getting in 2020. And Trump's base is immovable. And right now, his administration and him personally are more popular than they have ever been.
When you think about that, and that's true.
Yeah.
He's more popular than he's ever been.
Right.
And you think about all the lawfare, all the cases against him, the Russia collusion hoax.
Right.
January 6th, which, by the way, this week with the congressional hearings, falling apart, the information of the emails that Trump wanted National Guard people there.
Right.
And somehow it got lost between, I won't say it got lost. Somehow the message to the Capitol Police controlled by Pelosi never got to where it was supposed to be, but Trump wanted, that extra security out there on that day. When you see the whole thing going on, I mean, Michael Horowitz testifying this week.
Right.
It's, the inspector general and asking him the question, well, how many, and the one whistleblower was there, the one, Marcus Allen, I think his name was, the FBI whistleblower whose life was destroyed because he goes, what the management of the FBI is saying is wrong. And they attempted to destroy his career, his life, everything.
Yep.
He made a settlement with the FBI, which he still hasn't collected yet. And, Horowitz knows all of this. He goes, well, how many FBI agents were out there? We want to find out what happened on that one day. We have another election coming up. It's 4 years later. And he's like, well, we still have to go through the classification thing. He goes, there's always something. The American public wants to know. We want to know what really happened, why the security wasn't there. And nobody can give us an answer 4 years later? That's unacceptable.
Well, then he says his report likely wouldn't be available before Election Day, but he would hope to get it done before Inauguration Day in 2025. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
What's taking so long?
Well, it's the stalling of the Department of Justice.
Exactly.
And the FBI.
Exactly.
They don't want the transparency.
And they don't want anything falling out that would favor Trump before the election.
And as we've always said, I want to know everything that happened on January 6th.
Yep.
I want the
good,
truth.
Bad, and ugly.
I want the truth.
Yep.
That's why we went after, Liz Cheney so hard, because when they put together their so-called bipartisan group, which it was not, it was Democrats and Trump haters.
Right.
The reason that we said she's no conservative, by the way, there's a lot more evidence now that she's not a conservative by who she's supporting. For example, in Texas and other far left
she's a
liberals.
Yeah, she needs to just change her party affiliation.
Yeah. But when she didn't want due process in that investigation,
right,
where you could question the evidence, you could cross-examine the witnesses, and you could question the evidence, which is part of the American system. When she said to hell with that, she lost any type of conservative credentials with us.
Right.
And somebody should bring that exact point up to her,
Yep.
but she won't do any interview at all where she
Right.
can be cross-examined.
Right.
Because she can't be.
Right.
And this is not to justify the people that did wrong on that day, but it's to get to the truth.
Right. Well, very simple.
And it's also to when it comes to the prosecution, that we've seen the prosecution went way overboard in the charges against the people to begin with,
Right.
as we know.
Yep.
As we've seen, with the challenges already in there.
Right.
And that's the point. I want 100% of the truth. You and I never want to argue anything that's not the truth.
Well, look at everything they've thrown at Trump. Everything they've thrown at Trump are all massive, massive, massive lies. These aren't small lies.
They're huge lies.
The Russian hoax went on for years, and still some liberals report it as being the truth.
Yeah.
And all these cases falling apart, which we knew they would, over and over again. Charlottesville was a lie. Let's edit down to take out of context what he said.
Suckers and losers.
Now, through the emails we learned, as you mentioned, on January 6th, he was calling for a greater presence by the National Guard. Remember Nancy being recorded
twice.
We know she was upset about not having it right after that happened. Was she mad at herself?
Seemed like it.
America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. And I know in the present this doesn't really mean a lot, and people don't think about it, but it's something that enters my mind all the time. Just what we mentioned with everything that Trump has gone through, the lawfare, the Russian collusion hoax that went on for 3 years, the two impeachments, everything else. And if you would have told anybody a few years ago, just not go into the details, but just say a president who was accused of being a traitor that caused an independent counsel investigation that went on for 3 years, that said the president as a candidate, as a president, was colluding with the Russians. And then this president later on, when he was out of office, that he would be convicted of a ton of different felonies, civil fines, heading to $500 million, 2 impeachments, and would be the leading candidate to win the next presidential election. People would have told you were crazy.
Yeah.
But the fact is, when you say it and just lump it and say that in 30 seconds, it's like, wow. But when you go through it each and every day and the public has seen it, and then you see the other side of it, as we know, the Russia collusion thing completely fell apart. And what you realized now is that it was the Hillary Clinton campaign. And this is, you want disingenuous, and you want the absolute evidence of absolute political activism by the media?
Yeah, it's the Russian hoax.
It's the Russian hoax. She goes on and starts talking about integrity and everything else. She's the one that created she created and financed the Russia collusion hoax that split this country still has split the country. That's what started it, that split the country completely. She financed she and the DNC financed and created a complete lie, a dossier By the way, was she living in New York? Would that be considered fraud? Because she paid, as we know, an organization to pay, was it Ziggy? Was that his name? Ziggy Danchenko?
Yeah.
Was it Ziggy? Iggy.
Mm-hmm.
Iggy Danchenko. And in a drunk fest, well, let's say that Trump was doing this in a hotel room and doing this in a hotel room. And as Jerry Seinfeld say, having a pee party everywhere.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
All completely false. All made up. To the point where those lies were not vetted by the FBI and they got a secret warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. And she's walking around and liberals will never confront her on that. By the way, somebody on Fox News would. The Wall Street Journal would question it. We would question it if it was our side doing that.
Oh, yeah.
We would question all of it.
Anybody acting in that way that has been part of the conservative movement whatsoever, I believe, should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. By the way, she's also the one that recently said that misinformation should be punishable with jail time.
I know. It's like
that would be 4 life sentences for her. And I'm going easy.
Or the death penalty, which would be putting her in a room with her husband.
Exactly. No, that's a death penalty for him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Don't punish Bill for this. What are you doing?
Well, that would be a debate.
What did he do?
Who was it the death penalty? Who was it the death penalty for?
Exactly.
That would be a great debate.
Right.
I don't know. I think I'd be the one. I would want to be the
You're going to be secluded with Bill. Whoa. I wasn't part of that.
But again, this is by her standard. But it's amazing when you look at this. But if Trump wins, this will absolutely go down in the history books. And as all of these charges fall apart, the history lessons on when I can see it. I can see a book being written 50 years from now when the United States almost became a banana republic.
We are right there. We're at that door right now. The entire world is looking at this. And I've said this on the conviction, the day the conviction came down, the guilty verdict, the entire world went, are you kidding me? The liberals were having a parade for a day or two. And then they realized they had built a martyr. They couldn't say convicted felon because they were getting pushback on that. It was a negative because it was helping to build him as a martyr politically. And then you see the whole thing come crumbling down as it should because it's built on a set of lies. But Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, and the people responsible, Mershon, the judge in the Alvin Bragg case, these people will go free. There won't be any punishment against them for using their office in this way. It is an abuse of power like we have never seen, and it's on multiple levels by multiple people, and it's happening right now across America, and Trump isn't the only target. This is, if the FBI is sitting in parking lots taking down license plate numbers because parents are issuing a grievance about a very serious issue going on in their schools, then what won't they weaponize? What won't they do?
But understand that they did this. It's wrong. I hope they're held accountable, at least politically, by it. They won't get what they actually deserve, except hopefully the loss of power is what we're looking at. But think about what they did. They jumped the legal shark so much that understand that liberals, Democrats, pay attention here, the people that you support made Hitler a victim.
Yeah, right.
Hitler is now a victim. That's why he's doing so well in the polls.
And a former Hitler, Dick Cheney, is endorsing your girl.
Right. The real Hitler.
That really is it. The bizarre nature of all of this. If you put this out there, you're not going to cover it. If you did a 10-hour documentary series, you wouldn't even scratch the surface. Well, we said on the Russian hoax thing that that's going to have to be a 30-year Netflix series in and of itself. Now take the cases against him. Now take the bizarre behavior of this administration, the Democratic Party, how Kamala Harris became the nominee, and all of this, and put this down in documentary form. Yes. History will look back at this. The thing is that history doesn't have the same eyes as people do in the present. History looks back and people will go, what in the world? George Bush is no longer Hitler. George Bush is now the guy that's best friends with Obama's wife. They started a book club together. They're in it to win it. That's history. That's what history does in the minds of voters. That's actually what I believe, and I think the truth is the main driver, but a small part of it is also what I just mentioned with Donald Trump. He's a former president and served in a time when people's buying power was growing, when the jobless rate, the real unemployment rate, including record low unemployment for black men. The buying power was going up for every American. Leading up to COVID, people were light years from where they are now. They were not underwater. They weren't screaming, how am I going to make ends meet? It was quite the opposite. And that kind of, again, those glasses that you wear and taking a look at history, I think is what has people re-inspecting Donald Trump to say, wait a minute, Michael Rappaport, he said it recently. I just learned for myself, I just finally looked it up. The whole Charlottesville thing was a lie, and I bought into it. Now, he owned it. It took him too long. He owned it, but at least now he's looking at it with different eyes. We look at people someone who's a real journalist, Barry Weiss, when she said Trump was right. She's looking at these things. This is the thing. In today's world, you can find the truth, and you have to ask yourself, what is it that you actually know? Because the hatred for Donald Trump drove so much. That toxicity has eroded greatly. It's all but gone. But what is it that you actually know about Donald Trump when you roll your eyes, someone asks you or brings up his name, or you see his image somewhere? Why is it you associate those negative things? Because the Democrats won in that regard. That's why. Because they were able to convince you of things that weren't true. That's why. There are things I disagree with on Trump. I don't roll my eyes when I see his image. In fact, now I look at it and say, I pray that he wins the election November 5th. God help us if we condone the kind of behavior, the kind of gross abuse of power that we're seeing. God help us as a nation, because we will stand for nothing if we lay down for this.
And God help us if this hate on the left continues, where truth doesn't matter because it'll interfere with your hate.
Yep.
Where hate is more important than the truth.
Right.
Because that's what's going on. And as we have said, the people that hate are on the left. Identity politics, critical race theory, all of that is based on judging people by a group. In a negative way, judging people by groups and having a victim-oppressor mentality that you keep having to expand, which means you need to keep dividing people against each other, and that's what the Democratic Party has begun. And identity politics has led right to the anti-Semitism and the Jewish hatred in America that is endorsed in the most part, and by their policies, the anti-Semitism and Jew hatred in their policies toward Israel.
Right. And what they're doing, how they're allowing Iran to fund all of it.
Yeah, exactly. You want to find the behavior.
Right there. Look at what he's doing, not what he's saying when it comes to Joe Biden and Israel. Look at what he's doing to hurt them every single day. He's the one man with the power at this moment that can change that with Iran, and he does not. He started this when he became president. He could have changed it and still today has the power and won't do it.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So when we say, especially if Trump wins, I mean, this will go down in history. And I, we said it Monday that, this is the week where we said you'd probably be able to start figuring out where the polls are going and looking at the polls that were most accurate in 2020. And it seems to be, even from inside the campaigns, that the direction they're going, that Trump is seeing the movement towards him right now. But I'm looking at this here. Think about this. With all the demonization of Trump, the GOP, here's a headline here from Vox, GOP is less white than ever. Thank you, Donald Trump. Think about that.
Yeah.
Just think about all the stuff that has happened. And that's why I asked the question earlier when I was talking about, I remember in 1969 when I was a young whippersnapper.
Mm-hmm.
Not the old man that I am
today. Happy birthday, Gary McNamara.
Yeah, I'm going to pull out.
You old snapper.
It's time to pull out the walker.
You old whippersnapper.
Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. But I do wonder whether, I hope, and I was telling to Dad the other day, I said, Dad, I hope in this election you're wrong. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, I hope America has finally realized where the most BS is coming from. And he said, I'd be okay with that.
Exactly.
Dad was like, I'd be okay if I'm proven to be wrong 55 years later, that's okay with me.
Right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Latest update from, still Hurricane Helene, 80 miles an hour. Right now, 80-mile-an-hour sustained winds, so it's a Cat 1. Completely out of the panhandle now of Florida.
Yeah,
completely out of it. And you see now Atlanta's getting pounded. Probably I'm looking right now, or just looking at the map. I can't see the name because there's so much rain. It looks like Augusta's in the middle of the real bad stuff.
Right
there. And look how big this system is.
Yeah, it's
massive.
Huge. It's a huge system.
You're talking about it. I mean, right now. So it goes from southern Georgia, all the way up, and this thing spreads out. I mean, you see how far it's spread out. I mean, and I know they're basically two different systems, but there's a system above it, and it looks like they're connected together. And it goes from central Missouri all the way over to almost Virginia Beach.
Yeah.
And all the way north to Marion, Ohio right now. The
movement speed is actually increased. It's now moving at 30 miles an hour.
Wow.
And so you're looking at this now rapidly moving through, and it will give officials I guess, quicker look. They'll be able to assess sooner the damage, and there's no doubt it's massive damage. We're seeing videos coming out of areas affected where the water is up to roof lines, and it's just unbelievable here how much damage a storm can do. But it's a category, we were talking about a Category 4 as Helene made landfall at 11:10 p.m. local time.
140 miles an hour, right?
Yeah, and that is unbelievable. It's just, I can't even comprehend it. I've been in 80-mile-an-hour winds associated with a storm. Not gusts, sustained winds. And gusts were higher. I think gusts were up to 90, but it was mind-boggling to watch that and the damage that did. 140-mile-an-hour sustained winds. You cannot survive that. Structures, trees, and everything else. So we're seeing this, again, now hundreds of thousands of people without power, as is the case with hurricanes. It's unknown how long it would take to restore that power.
And, you have, if there's anything that you want to say is good about this, and there's not much you can say good about a Cat 4 hurricane, it didn't hit a massively populated area, but the rain and still very high winds all throughout Georgia.
Well, that's it. The landfall is one thing, but the effects of it, the outer bands and the damaging winds, we're talking tens of millions of people.
Yeah,
affected.
And land, what's the flooding going to be like there by the time this is all over? There were already, before any of this came, flash flood warnings in western South Carolina, I guess you could say northwest South Carolina, the way the state is shaped, and then also western North Carolina, and they're also getting pounded. Mm-hmm. So you look and say, all right, what is the flooding damage going to be in, like, for example, Atlanta, a major population area. But, to the folks in Tallahassee, we just hope that you came through this okay.
Yeah, and everyone that was affected in Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas now. It, again, is the rainfall, the water, the flooding is the most dangerous element of these storms. We do have confirmed deaths, multiple deaths related to this storm, but the most dangerous element to any hurricane is the water, flooding, storm surge, and rainfall. And it, again, will be one for the record books. This is the strongest hurricane in terms of landfall in Florida since they've been keeping accurate records.
What about Ian?
I don't know. That's what they were reporting. They're reporting this as the strongest.
Wasn't Ian a Cat 5 when it hit Fort Myers?
Was it? Yeah. Maybe they were talking about the size of it. Don't know. Maybe the footprint. Not sure.
Ian was 160 miles an hour when it hit Cat 5.
Right.
So they might have meant how widespread it was.
Could be.
I don't know.
Could be. Right.
Yeah. So, but you're looking at power outage tracker. Florida, 1.3 million people without power. Georgia, 583,000. South Carolina, they don't have it. They had it before. They don't have a number at the
Saw
moment.
one report a little while ago that said a couple of million total.
That's what you're close to, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's everything right now.
Right. Yeah. Amazing.
Significant outages reported in Georgia. Over 500,000 customers, we just told you, out of power early Friday morning. Winds have gusted as high as 100 miles an hour in Georgia. So
just amazing.
I know. It is just there. It's just
and the fact that it kept its strength well inland as a hurricane still right now.
And one of the things that's an unknown, and this is from talking to a lot of folks down in Tallahassee with a few other hurricanes that have hit near them, is if you ever had a direct hit, what would happen to the trees? Because normally you don't have hurricanes hitting a lot of forest land.
Right. Yeah.
And that was a worry of talking about projectiles and everything else with with those kind of winds. We'll find out very soon in the morning. When it gets light, because everything's really cleared out of Florida. Everything. So, all right, here we go. New Gallup poll. New Gallup poll states that a number of issues favor Republicans in the 2024 election. Chief among them, the fact that more Americans now identify as Republicans than Democrats. By the way, if that's true, doesn't that skew every single poll?
Yeah.
Because every single poll has
not
more Democrats.
Weighted. Yeah.
Yeah, every single poll has even Rasmussen, if you look at it, they're basically 35 Republican and like normally 32 or 33, Democrat 35, and then Republicans like 33 or 32.
Yeah, so the question would be, did they adjust the weights of their polling accordingly?
Well, that would be the weight. The weight that's the weight.
Well, based on what the registration is, based on where they are now, have they changed the methodology? If there are more Republican voters now, are they adjusting their methodology?
That's what I'm saying. All the latest polls you've seen from every pollster, right up to what in the last week, I've seen every one weights more Democrats. Everyone.
Right, and I'm saying they should be changing that.
Right, yeah. That would be my point, yes.
Yes.
But the average of Gallup polls taken between July and September, 48% of voters surveyed themselves either identified as Republicans or lean Republicans. So that would count independents. I lean Republican.
Right.
So that's why it's not in the 35 percentile. They're saying, are you Republican or Democrat, or do you lean? So 48% of voters surveyed either identified as Republicans or leaned Republicans, while 45% identified as Democrats or leaned Democrat. 46% of voters thought that the GOP was better able to handle the most important problem facing the country, as opposed to 41% who chose the Democrats. Gallup listed the issues that voters thought were most important as the economy and immigration. Other indications favored the GOP could be derived from the voter dissatisfaction with Democrats and the Biden-Harris administration. Only 22% of voters said that they were currently satisfied with the state of affairs. See, the thing is, who are these people? I'm always ticked off about everything. But then again, I'm now officially an old man, aren't I?
Yes, you are. Happy birthday.
22% of voters say they are currently satisfied with the state of affairs. Only 39% expressed approval of the job President Biden and his administration has done, and the economic index had a share of minus 28. The economic index rating is derived from the 22% of Americans describing current economic conditions as excellent or good, and the 48% saying that they are poor. 32% believe the economy is getting better versus the 62% say it's getting worse. That's where we said that the Democrats talking about that inflation is coming down rather than the inflation rate is coming down probably actually ticks off a lot of Americans.
Yeah.
Because as we said, the inflation rate might be coming down, as of course it would. But remember, that's on the compounded increase in all the prices over the last 3 years. So it's still going up.
Yeah, it's, again, when they say, well, inflation is coming down, and they start saying this, when a report comes out, we always say the consumer's already paid that. But if the consumer, or if anyone watching that report or any analysis of that report believes that, oh, wait, that means prices are coming down or will be coming down, then they're being lied to. Because that's what's implied. Inflation is coming down. The inflation rate has dropped. At best, if we get to the target rate on inflation, prices will still go up on the average of 2%. That's what we're talking about when it comes to inflation. Where we are now, there is no true deflation in the forecast. It's only really happened one time, and that was during the Great Depression.
Well, and that's why I saw a Trump surrogate out there the other day saying, you know, they're just talking about things like houses, which have nothing to do with pricing. Mm-hmm. Trump is saying we're going to flood the market with oil, natural gas, nuclear. We're going to bring down the cost of energy. We're actually going to decrease the cost of energy, which will help decrease the cost of manufacturing. Well, manufacturing, service industry, energy will bring down everything. He said, so he's actually talking about how he would bring it down, and people recognize it and say, well, no, that would bring it down, wouldn't it?
Right.
If energy was actually cheaper because you flooded the market with it.
Right.
Which the oil companies don't care.
No.
If they can make a profit by drilling more, they're gonna do it.
Sure.
Democrats have led in party affiliation since the age of Ronald Reagan, except for 2004, the Gallup graph showed. But Gallup stated Republicans previously have not had an outright advantage in party affiliation during the third quarter of a presidential election year since they've been doing it. Not once. Gallup noted Democrats have won presidential elections in the years in which they had a larger than normal advantage in party affiliation, including 92, 96, 2008, 2012, and 2020, in years where the advantage was narrower for Democrats. 2004 and 2016, for example, Republicans won in the Electoral College, if not the popular vote. But Democrats still had the edge.
Right. Yeah.
Now Republicans have a 3-point edge.
Right.
Wow. And then you had a poll that we'll get to here following the break here.
And this has to do with voter registration. Now, there are a number of things to consider when it comes to voter registration, but Michael Prusser, who is an analyst at DecisionDeskHQ.com, talks about voter data and everything else. He does data analysis, has some interesting numbers to throw in the mix. And it's hard to determine exactly what they're going to mean, but it does show something that is not happening. And we'll talk about that coming up.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Once a roadside inspection is completed, the officer will close it out, which involves the officer writing or typing up the report. The more the officer found during the inspection, the longer this will take. If violations were discovered, most officers, as a courtesy, will explain the violations to the driver. If there were any out-of-service violations, the officer will normally explain what must be done to get the out-of-service order lifted. Drivers need to be very attentive during this part of the inspection. The driver also needs to read and understand the complete inspection report. After receiving the inspection report, the driver has 24 hours to get the roadside inspection report to the motor carrier. If the driver will not be returning to a company facility within the next 24 hours, the driver needs to know to get it on the way to you via email, mail, or fax within 24 hours. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. So you have that the statistics on this would be registrations?
Yeah, this would from Michael Pruser, who is a data analyst at DecisionDeskHQ.com. He focuses on voter turnout and voter registration. And something that he posted along the way here, this is voter registration changes between November 2020 and July of this year. And what you have is Republicans, this is all states combined, Republicans have a net increase of 393,365. Democrats have a net decrease in 3.5 million, 3,584,321. Independents, and it's important to know that 20 states don't have party registration. So you have to take that into consideration. But independents have an increase here of 1.8 million. But what that doesn't reflect here, what it shows, I guess, that isn't happening, and that is massive energy toward the Democratic Party. We'll see when November 5th gets here, what the voter turnout is. Where's the energy coming from when it comes to the Democrats? What is she bringing to her campaign that is energizing voters? The one thing that energized voters in 2020 was the anti-Trump vote. That's not a big driver now. It just isn't. And you may still have plenty of people who will never vote for Trump. But the question is, will they get out to vote against Trump? This is why I really believe that the Democrats have to be worried about voter apathy. They have to be worried about what's not happening. And that is the energy behind Kamala Harris and the down ballot,
or the
course.
lack of.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you have to create that as the nominee. You're the one. You got to get them there. Your party, they're doing groundwork here, and I'm wondering what the results are. What kind of feedback are they getting on the ground? What are their internals showing with the Democrats?
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Hey, download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when you want. Wherever you are, you can listen. A few minutes after our show is done, our show becomes our podcast. So download the app today.
And thank you.
Listen. All right, you want to listen to, we haven't played any Morning Joe in a while.
You're asking me if I want to listen to Morning Show? I mean, are you asking me to make a personal decision here?
I don't know where that came from.
Whether, yeah,
I don't know why the frequency of my voice went up that much.
I wouldn't meow in public these days.
Well, I thought we'd play it just to see. And he's not going crazy. He's not flipping out or anything, but he's trying to give his serious analysis of what's going on, and that his claim is that there's a Trump-Harris double standard.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready?
All right.
All right, here we go.
Well, I mean, again, for people that are claiming she didn't go deep enough in policy, I would ask them to look at every presidential campaign over the past, 100 years, other than maybe Hillary Clinton's, who put position papers up, just constantly on her website. Didn't do a lot of good, as she has said herself recently. But you look at the direction, and she's talking about the direction she's going to go with policies, and she says she's going to be a middle-class capitalist. She's doing what I've wanted Republicans and Democrats to do for a very long time. And instead of obsessing on tax cuts for billionaires and multinational corporations, she's obsessing on middle-class capitalism, what she's talking about, and that is the creation of small businesses, helping people get into homes because they're having difficulty getting into homes, child tax credit, all of these things that, again, are good, sensible, middle-class policies that'll help build and grow the middle class, which is what conservatives and Republicans have always wanted to do. But what I find so striking, Jackie, is there are two standards. You've got Kamala Harris, and they're going, well, wait, what is the long-term impact of this, and why hasn't she talked about the next round of quantitative easing? Well, Donald Trump burps, and everybody laughs and goes, oh, man, he tells it like it is.
Yeah.
I mean, he is the beneficiary of what the Bush brothers used to call the soft bigotry of low expectations. People don't expect anything from Donald Trump, so he gets a free pass.
Is that accurate?
No.
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 Oh my God, the soft
But
trying to reverse that one.
Morning Joe himself might be the beneficiary of such a thing.
You know what I love, though? How he says that what Kamala Harris is proposing is what all conservatives, have been, basically asking for. No, it's not.
That's what conservatives have always Yes, stop.
Well, Wall Street Journal lined it up. Harris's economic plan is Bidenomics number 2. The vice president lays out 82 pages of more spending, more taxes, more regulation, more government. Doesn't matter whether she says she's a capitalist and they go through it. Higher taxes to make corporations and the wealthiest Americans pay their fair share. Without defining fair, she endorses $5 trillion in tax hikes in Mr. Biden's budget, including a 25% tax on the unrealized capital gains on top earners. As far as we can tell, she differs from the president only in calling for a 33% top capital gains rate instead of 44.6. She calls those common sense tax reforms, although they'd be the biggest tax hike in American history. New and bigger entitlements. She'll need all those taxes to finance all her new spending. She wants to revive the Build Back Better plan that failed in the Democrat Senate to support entitlements for child care, preschool, long-term care, and paid leave. No costs are attached. The figure, but you can figure it's in the trillions. More transfer payments, more child tax credits, tripling the earned income tax credit for childless adults. She calls these tax cuts, but they are income redistribution. That's actually cash going to people that don't pay taxes. More housing subsidies. We know that one. More government subsidies. Look at this here. This is a great point. More government subsidies that would be conditioned on rules that the federal government would put on localities to cut red tape and developers to employ innovative building and construction techniques. This is a euphemism for putting the federal government in control of local zoning and building codes. Will new homes have to come with solar panels, as they must in California? The $25,000 grant for first-time home buyers, more student loan forgiveness, more government control of health care. So what he says is what the middle class wants is a lot more spending and a lot more taxes. Because when you talk about corporations, I hope the American public is finally figuring out that when you tax corporations, you tax the consumer. The biggest, most successful economic lie or tax lie told by Republicans since I've been a radio talk show host, which next week will complete 35 years of doing this. the biggest lie they have consistently sold to Democrats and independents in the past is that when you tax a corporation, you punish those greedy people. When in essence, it's a stealth tax on the consumer, which means it hurts the poor the most. And they've been doing this for 35 years, and the public has been eating up this lie that corporate taxes only affect corporations.
Yep, it's a very simple equation. Where do corporations get their money? From the consumer.
Yep.
They're going to cover their margins. You raise any expense on them, and they're going to have to pass that along to the consumer to the point that the market will bear. But they're going to protect those margins, which means you'll pay for it.
And remember, every dollar taken even from an individual is government spending the money instead of it being invested. Because you hear all the time, well, what are these billionaires, what do they need with all that money? What do they do with it? They don't need all that. Well, what the hell you think they're doing with it? They're investing it in the economy.
Yep.
They're investing it in the private sector to grow real jobs, not government jobs. Remember the surrogate that was on CNN a couple of weeks ago? The Biden surrogate that said, well, the government's producing the most jobs now. That's the problem.
Well,
that's government is not. And
the government doesn't actually produce anything. It doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't produce wealth.
And it's like, well, that's the problem. You're saying, well, government right now is producing more jobs. We've seen it in the job growth rate. It's government jobs. That we don't want that. We want private sector jobs. We don't want government jobs.
No, it's but this is again, it's the demonization of which requires jealousy and envy to fuel it of either the rich or corporations or both. These big corporations, blah, 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 blah. So we'll tax them more. You mean you'll tax their customer more?
Oh, that was posted by Morning Joe. So he posted something that he viewed as being positive that could sell. The first, and this was on X, so I looked at the first comment. You lost your credibility when you told us how sharp Joe Biden was.
Yeah.
That's the first comment.
Yeah. That's, again, this idea of the government being able to come in. Think about this. Think about how many years successfully the Democrats have been promoting this idea. The government can come in and change the economic principles in order to make your life better. But it's not just that. They're also going to give you the benefits of this handout, that handout, $25,000 for a down payment on a loan. That is a direct handout to the banks. A down payment, when a bank requires it, the entire idea and principle behind that is that you are showing up and putting some money into that home, and it's less likely you'll walk away from your obligation to the bank. You'll be paying on it because if you walk away, you lose that, let's say, $25,000. If other people are funding that for you, you have no teeth in the game.
Which means interest rates go up.
Which means the cost of the homes, the market's going to go up. And also, you're going to have the banks benefiting from it because they'll love that idea because it'll mean more money coming into their coffers. It will benefit the banks. It's not going to change any equation whatsoever for people because they will still have no teeth in the game, and there is still a greater risk of them walking away. We saw this with the government going in and manipulating the markets and the whole zero down thing and all of the crazy mortgages and subprime mortgages that were created during those years. People walked in with no teeth in the game, and they were willing to walk away from those homes as a result of it. If they had built up, if they had walked in with $25,000 down and built up some equity over the years, it makes it a lot harder because they lose so much that they have already put in to that home. You start handing out government money, you might as well just write a check to the bank because it changes nothing on the risk part of the entire equation. You're not changing anything.
Well, the only thing you would change on the risk is the bank knows that's not your money that you put down. Therefore, you're more of a risk to them.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Because if you've got zero down and the government comes in and gives them the bank money, you change nothing on the risk for the borrower. It's still a great risk.
Right. Right. Exactly.
You're not. There's a lessened risk when it's their money that they put down, not other people's money. It, by the way, is why when you look at it and you go out to get a mortgage, you can't borrow money. It's going to have to be, I mean, there could be money given to you, but you couldn't go and put like, okay, we're going to put this money on a credit card in order to go toward the house and the mortgage. No, they need to know that that money was established in your bank account and how you got that money. It could be, well, we just got married and our parents gave us a $25,000 gift. But there are laws as to how you get that money. It's why they go through that.
That happened to me. That happened to me.
They go through your accounts.
When I built my house, and they're like,
"Where'd you get this money?
Where'd this money come from?"
That moved from this account to that account.
Right. Well, what happened is the account I was going to pay them from. I had I think it was a CD or something, a real large CD, or it was a treasury bill or something. It was quite a bit of money. And I transferred it into the account. They saw that and questioned, where's that money come from?
Right.
They wanted to know before they would agree,
right?
You know, on the mortgage.
Because if you took, let's say you took a loan out for $50,000 to put down, well, now you've got another obligation to someone else, which makes you a greater risk. That's why that's why there are laws that regulate that.
And once I explained that, they were fine. Go, oh, no problem. Okay, okay, we see where it came from.
Right.
All right. They were fine with it.
Right.
Yeah, it's my money.
They want to know you don't have another obligation to somebody, another lender. And while you have no obligation to the government, under this plan, you would have no obligation. This would be $25,000. Well, you can walk away, which means what? That the American people that are funding this too would be losing. They're not going to get this done. But the idea of this fails on so many levels. Because basically the American people collectively would just be writing time and time again for each of these borrowers who qualify $25,000 checks to the banks with still the same level, maybe even greater level of risk of people walking away from those loans.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Oh, the VP debate right around the corner. And, you've got somebody helping Vance. Who is it, and what is Vance going to do? We'll get to that. Plus, Melania speaks.
Yeah.
You and I were just listening to part of it. I'm like, whoa, she's never done this before.
Yeah.
She's done as you said, the obligatory First Lady stuff.
Right.
But she's out there on the issues now in this interview defending her husband.
Right.
And I looked at you and said, this is actually quite effective. Now, the mainstream media probably won't show it.
Yeah.
But it's quite effective.
Yes, it is.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.